Hello everybody, welcome to the show. Bass and Bonsai, down here doing some experimenting. Got a lot of stuff to cover, and I know real quick I'm gonna talk about all kinds of different things. Real quick, okay. So where to start, who knows. If you guys have been following the channel, I just, a video, oh boy, which video did open today? One of them I just released today was from footage from last, at the beginning of, say, the fall bite last year. So you're going to see the, actually you're going to see, I think it was this rod before I cut it down and switched around. I think that, yeah, that's the one where it's the Big Trout Lure Killer versus the 522, right? I think that's which one you saw. Or was it 632? But anyway, today's video, and I've got another little short video I put together that's going to come out tomorrow. It's going to show the 522 with the Alpha's Air TW. Now, yes, I no longer have that reel. That was from last year, the year before. Whenever the Alphas first came out, I got that reel. We were out fishing on the 522, and still don't have any, I didn't have any like issues with the reel other than for the cost that they cost and what I felt that reel could do, that it was just real good with the lightest baits, like the trout magnet kind of thing. But then if you guys are familiar with the whole PW100 Pro, the purple spool, I felt, and a couple others I had at the time, that's when I was kind of still with the Abu Garcia. The ALC BF7 at that time was my best casting BFS reel. For whatever reason, like that would be the lowest I would go. I didn't even mess with trout magnets, and I didn't have these little cranks like you see me testing now. So basically I go crappie fishing with the 16th ounce crappie jig, and that ALC BF7 just smoked everything. It was a little finicky, but it just flat out worked. Now, I may not have given the Alpha's Air TW its fair justice, and because I was, there's a lot of different stuff going on, kind of like right now. I kind of have to settle down and focus on one thing in order to figure out, the little kind of, some reels, some rods need fished in a certain way or adjusted a certain way to get to their full potential. So it's a possibility. The Alpha's Air TW, I had it for a very short period of time, and I don't really plan on buying. If I bought any of those three, if you know the three I'm talking about, and you've seen the talk going around now is there's a new Aldebaran out. It looks uglier and crap, I think, anyway, compared, and a lot of people's take on it. And they've taken this, what is already a nasty part of this design, and they just stuck it out like in your face. It's like, oh, you don't like that? Here, it's right there. It should be easier to adjust, but then now there's the question is, when you're palming, is it just going to sit there and rub on you? Because if you look at the pics on the side view of that new reel, it looks like it's out there. It's not like, oh, you can kind of make it. It looks like it's just stuck out there. So everybody's talking about that. And they're also what I call the variants. The Alpha's Air TW came out, right? So now you have, I call it the Geico pigeon, just so I can remember. Gecko pigeon, whatever. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. I'm horrible with names. Basically, in saltwater, reel that is based off what was the first reel out, the Alphas. So then the newest thing out there that I think just got released, this is all happening this weekend, was the Stream and Creek version. Now, I'm not, that's the best looking reel by far, so far out of the Alphas. Maybe the best reel that Daiwa has going right now. It just looks cool. I wish they'd go back to the old, even though I don't use them, I wish they'd go back to the old school cork knobs instead of that press cork, because we all know, I guess it's more expensive and that cork's harder to find. But we all know we like the original style cork, or even like a can, I don't know, something different other than just the norm. That when nobody likes the pressed cork compared over a regular cork. I'm saying it's way better than just a black knob in my opinion. But so that reel I've been debating about getting, and you guys comment if you know, because I know what you're thinking. I don't think I know everything. So I don't know the exact all the specs on that reel. From my understanding, and I've watched a couple videos, but I've watched 50 million videos a day, not a day, but in general, I think it's a fixed inductor, right? And just like this reel, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I guess I'll show you in this one. And I don't think it has a drag clicker. So if you guys that are in the know on that, or you have one ordered, you've really been studying that specific reel, comment. But that's what I have here. Nothing moves. It doesn't go in or out. It's just a fixed inductor, rotor, whatever you want to call it. So for more, what I consider that more for, I think that's, well, definitely shorter distance, more like pitching, flipping. You're not trying to generate a lot of spool speed to where you don't need that brake to kick out and work more. It's just going to be a steady brake. So it may be perfect for that. So it's a possibility. I don't know. It's still up in the air. If that thing for sure had a clicker, I'd probably order one. But there's another possibility I'm going to be getting another one of these. I haven't decided yet. I don't need anything else, period. But and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit about this spool. I did some more testing today. And if you remember right, if you didn't watch it, go out and look. I shot these two guys together. Basically the chameleon spools. I know I was saying Shimano Daiwa, but we were basically just comparing the chameleon spool for the zillion, Daiwa reels and the chameleon spool for the Aldebaran. The Aldebaran should have smoked it easily, and it just didn't yesterday, and I don't know why. I still don't know why. Although I know I've been talking big on Daiwa here lately, I still wanted that. That should perform a little better than it did, but it's working good. And I'm going to tell you there's good and bad with this spool, and I can't figure it out as to why it's doing what it's doing. But at the moment, not with the trout magnet, but with that little bait, I don't even know where I have it at now. I think I've got it. They're both sticking up on the rods, but hang on. This bait right here, at the moment, and this is a lingle I had out today because we'll get into that. That dude, right? I started throwing these in those little creeks and streams, and so basically now that is the smallest bait I throw. So to kind of test all these out, plus I don't have to worry about hitting the neighbor's house, my little cast testing area. That little bait right there, 1/16 of an ounce, basically 1.6 some grams is what they weigh, ready to go with the hook and all. About, probably with the bill, with the hook, with everything, probably more like 1.7, and they vary a little bit. But as of yesterday, and I went back out again today, that is the best spool I have. And I don't know why, but here's the downside to that. And look at the setting. Now, not on 10, because, and I don't know what kind of distance I'm getting, but I have to set it to 10 to do any kind of sidearm cast. But I can go all the way down to 6 with that, with this spool. I can go all the way down to 6 I'm running 10-pound braid, because and I'm probably going to go to, this is a real shallow spool, so I probably will go with even lighter braid. I didn't really want to, but I'm probably going to end up buying some 6. They make this down to a 6, which is, this is considered 0.12, the 8 is 0.10, and the 6-pound is 0.8 is, I think, how they got it on the rating. So it would definitely be a smaller. I could get say, be at that height but have more line, or I go a little bit lower but still have, say, 150 feet of line. So anyway, back to the casting I was doing yesterday, and I was out there doing it today. Number 6, this thing will consistently go all the way to where the Black Knight 2 and the Dark Wolf Ultra were casting this bait. I go back out there yesterday and I tried it again today. Now this is just with the Black Knight 2. I didn't spool up the Dark Wolf Altar, but they were like consistent. They were both casting the same, like they felt the same. I cannot get them back to that spot. Now we got a breeze. I had a little bit of a breeze yesterday and the wind's kind of blowing today. But I was still doing it. No issue with backlashing, no issue with nothing. But then if I just go and I try to make a, and not even a hard, if I just try to pitch it sidearm instead of overhead cast, it was backlashing. I'm like, what is going on with this spool? And I think it did it once to me yesterday if you go back and watch that video. So I cranked it up, all the way. I was like, I'm going to be able to cast sidearm without a backlash. So I jumped all the way up to 20 and then went down to like, halfway from that. And then I ended up where it seemed like at 10, I could cast without a worry of it backlashing, spooling up. And then I went and cast overhead, and it won't go out to that street, which is like a 60 foot roughly. It just won't get back there again. It'll go just over 50. Like you can cast it as hard as you want. It just will not get it that far. But I dialed it back down to 6, cast it, not as hard as I was when it was set on 10, but pretty hard. It goes right out to the 60 foot. No problems, no backlashing. So I'm still, I don't know, I'm kind of working on that spool. That's basically what I was trying with this guy yesterday, and it just will backlash before, like you can't set it, I can't explain it, but I could not get that over this consistently. I could get them both there, but this one on that number 6, as long as you're doing overhead cast, is way easier than that by a little bit. They're close. And they seem to be jumping ahead of the Dark Wolf Ultra or the Black Knight 2. Which that spool should. I know it's bigger around, but that spool is way lighter. 0.2 grams or something. So that spool should, technically that shouldn't, none of these others, even the Dark Wolf Ultra, the Black Knight 2, should come close to that spool. So I think there's an issue here because I've had to turn the brakes up. And some of you probably comment, well, you got the chameleon spool. And it could be a possibility that the way it's designed, because I'll be honest, I already tried it. They won't fit. If you remember right, I got those 0.5 millimeter magnets. They won't fit. They will rub in this if you try to add magnets. Because here's what I think is why this spool isn't really much better than the stock spool. Because the stock spool goes pretty good. The Calcutta Conquest gets out there pretty good with that 1.6 grams. I think even though they have this kind of deeper in order that they tried to keep the depth, and I haven't really measured. I guess I could do that, but my tool isn't really that great. It's a cheaper one that came from AliExpress. But and let me just see here. And it's a possibility, even though they're the same distance apart. Hang on. Let me get what I'm doing here, and then I'll try to explain what I'm talking about. I know, it's a stretch. So I think what has happened, let me just see. Whoa. Well, we got 25.1. And there's a stock. So if anything, this is actually would be closer. Yeah, this feels like it would be even, a touch closer to the magnets. And as long as they don't rub, in my mind, it should have a stronger braking. But here's where I think the problem lies. I think, and it may not have anything to do with, I have no idea. I'm not very well up on the science of this. I think maybe that is a thinner aluminum than this, and it makes for weaker brakes. Does that make sense? Because I feel that spool being that much lighter than this spool, if anything, I should be able to come back on the brakes. But what happens on mine, and you guys comment if you've done this swap or with a different brand aftermarket spool, but I have to dial the brakes up for this spool. But in theory, as long as I can't go, you know, as long as I don't dial them all the way up and I feel like I need to go more, it should be there. And then I should be able to get, like, that should get crazy distance on, you know, or be easier to cast a lighter baits just because that spool weighs so much less. Now then there's the fact that it's bigger around. And the Alpha's RTW, the Dark Wolf and all them, everything's starting to go down. The new Aldebaran went from, what are these, 32? These are 30. Are these? I don't even know what these are. Where they go by the outside, right? I think they are. I don't know. I got so many different. So yeah. 31 point whatever. So 32. And the new one's what, 29 or I don't know, whatever it is. In my mind, none of that matters, especially if you've got, you don't put all that line on anyway. So if I'm out there, I know somebody will say that that does matter, but if the spool's so light, but the line that's coming off, see that? That's as much line as I run, and it's only 29.6. So, or right at 30. Wait. So, say close to 30 millimeter basically is what I've got on there. Because really, no matter how high your sidewalls go, I'll call these sidewalls, no matter how high they are, now of course they're going to, you know, the bigger spool you get, the more weight you're going to add. But when you take the weight of that spool, and it's only like 4.2 grams without line, and I only spool it up to where it's roughly 30 instead of 32 millimeters, and I'm casting. I mean, what's the difference if I'm filling up a 29 or say a 30 millimeter spool? I'm still basically downsizing, right? And I could probably go with less, and that's something I may do. I may designate now that I've got, because typically before, and the main reason you guys have heard me talk about liking a certain thing, hello Jay, what's going on, is I like that they're, you know, versatile. I like the fact that my reels, you know, but now I've gotten such a huge arsenal compared to what I guess I've had over the years. I typically, I don't know, I probably have 2, maybe close to 3 times as many rod and reel combos as I would normally have. I like them to go all over the place. But now especially, I actually have 3 spools for this guy, 2 for my Aldebaran. So what I'll probably start doing now, because I've tried to go with like 10 pound and go through the spectrum. So what I'll probably start doing now is you'll probably see me getting, and I probably won't go lower than the, like I said, I can get the 6 pound braid. I'll probably do that, and then I'm going to start designating for sure spools, but maybe total reels like the lingual. I'll keep one strictly for real little water. It's maybe. Actually, the linguals I'm probably going to keep for the versatility. I'm going to probably fish these just like what you see it's on now. The lingual up will just be my still versatile BFS rods, the BFS reels, sorry. This spool, the Aldebaran, maybe just in general, but for sure this spool, I might just go ahead and turn into, you know, get a small line and just a small creeks and streams. So, and I've got a couple other rods, but you've seen the 522 SUL, the Cast King Zephyr. I'm tempted to buy, and for those of you that don't know, don't buy all my Valiant Eagle rods, but they're the Valiant Eagle rods that were 87, 90 bucks or 62. I actually got it, whatever coupons I have at the moment, I can get that, the Valiant Eagle for $55 or 57. Here's the problem though with that. The one I want is their mid one. It's sold out. They've got the 5'8", I believe, 5'6", whatever. I think it's, yeah, 5, 6, 8, whatever that one is, but it's a 3-piece. It's available, and then that little 4 something is available. It's a little, it's going to be a little smaller than this rod as far as, I think it'll be a touch stiffer, but it's going to be even shorter than the 522, which I don't know. That's why I've kind of been out here playing around. But for little creeks and streams, if that's all I'm using it for, because this 522 is a real good rod once you get down on a little bit of water. Like even the little, you're gonna see the video that is coming out tomorrow, even on a little pond for like little bass, little panfish, man, it's hard to beat. Like the 522, probably anything that's at 5 foot or shorter area, range somewhere in there. Because you can cast, that's another thing I'll talk about here in a minute, I'm not talking about it yet, is length of rods and casting and powers and all that. So to finish this, that's what you'll probably see me doing. And I could not believe that this thing is doing what it's doing at the moment. I know I was talking it up, bragging it up, the SV Boost spool. Because the boost has nothing to do with this, because the inductor in that is just a regular, it's actually way thinner than it, I wish it was actually, I think, a little thicker myself. But this spool weighs a lot more than that by like several grams. But it is light. It's like a 7 something with the bearing. I can't remember now. But yeah, it's so very capable. I'm happy with it. Other than that little, I need to figure out what setting to not. I don't want to have backlashes. Even if I can overhand cast better than everything else, if I go to do a little flip cast, I don't want to have to worry about thumbing it or any of that kind of stuff. So that's still up in the air, but very good casting abilities for overhand. Jay says he's got an ALC BF7 that he wants to get rid of. Says he can't cast a 1.6 gram. Yeah, here's my take on the reason. Yeah, I had one I wanted to get rid of too a few years back, Jay, but I don't think I want, now these are cheap. I don't want that kind of magnetic system on anything like when I'm getting down and I'm wanting to cast very, very light lures. I think they're too like erratic. The adjustability. Now, I don't know why they haven't or can't, maybe it's impossible to make these where they move with the casting, which I guess maybe it doesn't create enough, that spool turning however fast doesn't affect these magnets at all, won't try to pull them or push them in or out. But I think it would, so why not just build, this spring loaded in some way to where then you have the real test calls it dynamic braking system or whatever, but whatever you call it, Shimano, the AliExpress knockoffs, and Daiwa all have that as far as kind of how hard you cast will move the force of the magnets is basically what it does. So, and I've talked about that before, the SV Boost. I think that's why I think they're headed the right way. I think this is just a first step. You'll see a lot of different things going on with that SV Boost. And Shimano, I don't know what this new Aldebaran, if it any different technology. From what my understanding, the only thing they changed on the magnets is like right now, the lowest setting you can actually go to, which if you could read it, which you can't hardly, is down to 1. So it's putting some little bit of force on it. And you can only go, up to like 5 or 6, but now it lets you, the new one will let you dial down even lower, which I never went that low anyway. I could turn this all the way down and I still needed more, like, I didn't need more. 50, you guys may have seen basically something to slow it down. Now that reel turned all the way down. I felt like it needed to go lower, like I needed less brakes. I've never, with the Aldebaran and all the different heavy flip, I don't flip and pitch. So that's maybe what those guys were, maybe that's what their goal is to try to do. But I cast either sidearm, kind of an underhand whip or overhead or something like that. I don't kind of try to just needed less. I wouldn't see how it need less brakes, but And as far as more brakes, there's a few out there. We fixed the Dark Wolf Ultra and the Black Knight 2. They're actually, the braking systems are good now. They're like right in that mid-range. Just over 3 is where most of mine need set. But I can't understand the issue going on with why. Not that they weren't beating these still, but they won't even match to where these are going, where they were going like the last week when I checked them. So I need to re-evaluate and redo that. So I'm going to do that, but here's what I did today. I took the Lingle, and I was having issues with him because the Dark Wolf Ultra, or sorry, the Black Knight 2 and the Lingle, I tried both yesterday, and they couldn't even come close to these guys. Now, the Lingle was like being horrible. And so what I found out, and I suggest you guys maybe double check if you're having any issues with when you're trying to, and I'll try to show you here real quick. If you're trying to get out there and you're trying to set, like I do, you're trying to adjust how much line, how quick the line comes off, like with that bait you got on the end. I was having nightmarish problems with this spool, and I could have swore like something was catching, rubbing, or what. I didn't know what was going on. And I still don't know how this was doing it, but the only issue I found, and then I went out today, and I think I fixed it, is inside here, and I do have it set pretty good. I like that right there. Oh, you guys see that? It's got a little resistance. It's not a lot, but just enough. I can't feel it when I'm reeling it, and I don't think it's affecting, I can't get any more distance if I try to loosen it, because then it will want to backlash. So that is just a little slight resistance. You could go a little tighter even if you want to. And if, like I've talked about before, if you're new to fishing, new to bait casters, you'll want that to where your bait just drops, and when it hits the ground, you don't want that to overrun at all. You don't want it to, keep going. And that's pretty close, kind of like that. Kind of like when it does something like that, that's about perfect for me, the way I fish. And I do recommend that you, at some point in time, try that setting like that right there. Even if you're an advanced or beginner or whatever, as you, evolve and get better and better at it, you get to that point. So here's what was going on with this thing. Because I even got out the other one. And I'm like, this was my original one, the first one I got. And I'm like, why does this thing feel better than this guy? And it could be just a AliExpress thing, could be a legal thing, could be just my real thing. And I'll take this off. I have to readjust that. Oh man, I had it perfect too. I hate readjusting stuff once it's perfect. But to show you guys what my issue was, wasn't this. It was this guy right here. Let me see if I can get him out. Come on. Hang on. Okay. Let me set this down. That's going to run out. This guy right here. And I'll try to show you. I fixed it. So you see how this works? That slides in. And it does have, like, so it doesn't move. So once it goes in there, it's stationary. And what's weird is, and I don't know why, and it could be mine, but when it's in there, I'm putting it back in. I'll try to show you. It does touch that your main drive worm gear, because it spins. So I don't know how much touching or whatever it does. So technically, I guess if it's bound up and not perfectly straight, it could cause some issues with your cranking, right? Now the spool is separate from here. This is the part your spool end runs on it. So on these short ones, that's kind of how they switched out the Shimano. That touches that, and that's how you push a little pressure and keeps the spool from wobbling, is by this, okay? So what I had going on, if you can see the end, it's kind of like just when you're, if you've ever had model parts and you cut the little flange off, there was a little bit of a burr. Well, actually it was a big burr sticking out that basically wasn't letting this fit into that thing like it's supposed to. So I think it was kinking it. It just had it not going in straight. So all I did was took my X-Acto knife, took that burr off to where it fit down with the spool out, went in all the way like it should, flush. And then I went back out because I went out today casting it, and I was having issues just trying to set that tension like I just showed you. So I came back in here and started. I took the line back off the spool. I was checking spool tolerances and all kinds of stuff. And I guess while we're right here, for those of you that haven't seen me demonstrate this like umpteen times, I start with it tight. Like, see that? That's too tight for me. Now, if you're a beginner, that may be perfect because that's 1.6 grams out there and it's moving it. And I could cast, but my distance will start to struggle with distance once you are that tight. But for just getting it out there, no backlashes, you might want to start there. Or if you've got what you call, some people, you've heard them talk unruly spools or whatever. So what I like to do is I'll set and play with that, and I'll go out and cast. And then I'll just a little, this doesn't have a clicker, but even if you got a clicker, sometimes just a little twinge before it even clicks, if you're trying to loosen it, bring it out, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey kind of thing. But just get it just wherever, and you can kind of fine-tune. I use this as a fine-tune. This is not a zero adjuster, that's another thing. Daiwa says that they have, there's zero adjusters. I don't believe in none of that crap. Especially not letting somebody from the factory set and adjust that for me. They're not out there with me fishing. Hell, they might not even be a fisherman. They may not ever cast a bait casting reel. So right about there is about right. That's how I like mine. I like it to just a little bit loose. Now, if I'll get out, and if I feel like you can just feel like it's restricting your casting a little, I may go a little bit, back it off just a hair. Or if I'm out there and I'm like, oh man, this thing won't keep from fluffing, I may tighten it just a touch, but somewhere right in there. But anyway, that one little burr I felt was holding this reel back. Now it is pretty good. It is still not, I was getting, if you guys remember in all the testing me out there doing, probably maybe 55 feet. But the good news is what I've got on the rod I plan on using it for, and I actually plan on using the Lingos for a little bit heavier even than I can throw the 1.5s, but I've got way more capable reels and spools that'll do it. So what I'm going to do with this reel, and I've got on the Toma with the light tip, and I was out there casting, I was using the 632 Kang Teton and getting those distances. Then I went back out with this Toma with the light tip with the 1.6 gram bait, and I can still get those distances. So I know that I could take this combo. I could go to those little creeks and streams if I wanted with this exact combo. Or if I'm like going to a creek or stream where I know might have some bigger fish, I'm like, well, I better take this. If I wanted to take this, for instance, just a touch stouter rod than the rods I'd normally be having at the creeks and streams. So I found a couple things out. I found the burr, and also found out that to throw the 1.6 grams, now the trout magnet is a whole different story. That's like a whole beast. I don't think any of these reels are ready for trout magnets. To be honest with you, I think you got to start out with the 1.5 grams or bigger. And all the reels, the Alpha Zero TW, all of them I've ever owned, to really have an enjoyable experience, and you're casting them like real, right where you want them accurately with these. I found several reels over the years that are capable of that, but none of these spools really. That Zero TW that I had, the Dark Wolf Ultra, and the Black Knight 2. Yes, you can get out there and what people say, a fishable distance. Nah, it's not a fun fishable distance. 1.7 grams or 1.5, yeah, possibly 1.3. Because when you get to that 0.1, 2, 3, when you're only doing, say, starting with the gram, every time you add that 0.1, 3, 4, 5, 7, up to say 2 grams, you're like in a whole nother world of how much easier they are with our technology, what we have now in rods. Because what I'm finding out in the rods is that the reels, and I guess I'll just jump to that, and then I probably skipped something else I was going to talk about, but let's talk about that real quick. What I was doing today, let me finish the zero adjuster, and then I'll talk about the rods. This is the thing, and I can't remember if this is for the CTSV or whatever. I found this, and I mainly got it just for the drag, the star. But then I figured out that the zero adjuster fits right on the Zillion. I don't know which other zero adjusters, I would take it, it would probably fit all of them, I guess. I don't know. But this is way easier to turn, looks better, and $16 gets you that star and that adjuster, and it makes life way easier. For those of you guys that have a Daiwa and like, they said not to mess with it from the fact, dude, I don't care what they say. This is one of the adjustments when I first get a reel. Like if you watch Tackle Advisor, he's like, you want to know what the first thing I do with the zero adjuster? Adjust it. But yeah, that is something that, and there's not an exact thing. I can't tell you how to set it. This is for you guys. When you're out casting, that adjustment is a fine-tuned place that you need to set it for how you fish. If you're a super hard caster, you're going to need to probably have that a little tighter than most guys would. If you're flipping and pitching, yeah, you might be that just to take away side-to-side play. But for me, like I've talked about it, that little, like the smallest baits I throw, I will set it for that. And then I'll set all my reels for that. Even the reels that aren't even going to see baits that low. They're going to see half-ounce chatterbaits all day long. I still like just that little touch of tension, just kind of helps settle down any spool, kind of keeps them within range of what I'm dealing with. Now, technically, I probably want to go a little bit tighter, but the problem is if you can't go too tight, because the minute you go a little too tight, you will feel it in your reeling. You will try to reel, and you'll be like, something's wrong with it's not reeling as smooth as it used to. Well, if you adjusted this, believe it or not, turning your brakes up all the way on a magnetic system, you can almost feel that. You can definitely tell it in the spool, like you try to free spool the spool and spin it. But that is what you can really feel. If you have that going too tight, you'll feel it. You'll feel like your reel just got harder to turn. Not like hard to turn. It just has more resistance than it did. Okay, while I was out today, and I was throwing this dude, I started out on, just because I was like, I don't know when the last time I actually was out there casting and using that rod, the 632 Kind Teton Ultralight. Hooked it up, choom, right out 60 feet, 60 feet, 60 feet. So I was like, well, we'll try it. And I think I threw it on the 522 SUL the day before. Yes, I think that was yesterday I threw it. So I went back out again with the 522 SUL. Now, first few casts were a little hairy. It took me to adjust to how that, the release point, how hard to cast it. But the 522, it was getting right out there 60 feet. Like, well, let's just turn this into a true test. So I only own 3 Teton rods. So I went and got the 661 light, put it on, and I'd thrown this, I think I threw this on it also. Through that, I think I threw that with the big spool, the heavier spool I have. Same difference. Within a few casts, you kind of have to, especially with actions and length, when you go from, like, say, ultralight 5 foot to a light 6.6, there's definitely going to be a different casting to get if you're throwing the same exact bait. Same casting distances on all 3 of those rods. So I'm like, well, what in the world? But I did notice that when I was trying to throw this with the other heavier spool, it did not like any of the whippy rods. And I was talking to, a couple of you guys have mentioned it before and through the comments, chatting with you guys about what I'm getting ready to talk about. I think some of what I'm finding out in my findings on testing this stuff, that is not it. I don't even know where mother spool. This is SV spool. So like this spool is bigger, heavier, and if you remember right, I think I was out there doing the testing. I think I was throwing this on the 661, and I can cast that 1.7 gram or 6 gram bait about as far as I can with anything. Now it takes a little it's harder to do, and you're doing it on a rod that is actually not rated for that thing. But when I tried to do the same thing and put on a lighter rod with a more whippy, a lot softer tip, it don't likey. That it sucks then. And if I could find my other spool, I have no idea what I did with it. Cat probably ate it. Well, somewhere around here. Hang on, I got all these spool. I don't know what that one's for. Oh, here it is. I stuck it in one of these. So here's my thoughts and theories on this. Is for you guys, like you're questioning, say you already have a reel or a rod and you're wanting to know what to pair it with, because that's one of the biggest questions I get is like, I really like the Cast King Zephyr, what rod should I put with it? Well, and here's why. I'll also allude to why I think the Cast King Zephyr combo as a rod and reel combo is horrible together. So here's my thoughts. Let's take the lightest spool I own, which is this guy right here, 4 point whatever. Let's take this guy, which is like 7 something, I don't know. This guy, what was he, like 11 or whatever. And then this guy, which is a little bit heavier, especially you have to run more line, it's going to be heavier. So if I'm going just on spool weights, I don't care what brand you have, what braking system actually either. If I'm going just on spool weights, I think the lighter you go, I guess in a way, is a more forgiving spool, and a spool that can start, like take a faster, the inertia, the startup, and not overrun, and the smaller size. So I don't have one up here within grasp, or I would show you those. Your Alpha's Air TW, the Dark Wolf Ultra, even the new Shimano coming out, and all those. As they get smaller, they can take the super ultra light tipped rods, like not necessarily the 522 SUL, because even though that's considered super ultra light, it's the whole rod that flexes. So I'm talking about the real whippy, the tips are like, they flex real much. Like if you guys are familiar with the Delicacy we've talked about, the Cast King Zephyr, that rod tip, or any of those that have like a solid graphite tip that is crazy soft at the tip, because the CU double isn't quite like that. The CU double is ultralight, but it's a little stiffer. It's definitely stiffer than all those others I've mentioned. So therefore you might want to pair those with those smaller ones. And I didn't have anything near that soft when I did have the Alpha's Air TW. Well, I talked about earlier, like I may not have really given it its fair shot. I think I had the 632 and the 522 for sure, because it's in that video. So I tried it with all those, but I think that is all I had, which are hollow body. I don't think I had a solid tipped rod and fished it with that Alpha's Air TW. So I would, although you could probably fish all of, well, the Shimano, all the Dark Wolf Ultras and all those with those rods I've talked about, like the Cast King Zephyr and all them. This spool and this spool definitely do not like real soft tipped rods. They do better with the, and you can cast the same bait. Like the 1.7 would probably honestly cast better with the light tip on the C double than it would the ultralight tip, if that makes sense. This one definitely would. This guy definitely would. So, like you can get, and even though the ratings they kind of vary somewhat, you know, like the 522 SUL is a perfect example. Some of you guys could comment if you own those and like a Zephyr or something with a solid tip, and how much that first, 6 to 8 inches flex compared to 522. And I'll try to show you if I can here real quick on a couple rods what I'm talking about. So I'll just go to the first two guides. Like, you see that? Look at that big bow. Like, it's pretty soft, but that's a pretty big. I'll go back to the 3. So you got the tip, and then back 3 guides. See that flex? That's not really like a, although the whole rod's going to load up and it'll let you cast pretty good stuff. I honestly, that's why I think it's one of the better casting rods. The way that thing, that rod's hard to beat. But when you get a good soft tipped one with the lighter spool, those are actually good too. So I'm going to show you here we have, and just because that's within my reach is why I've grabbed it. And I'm going to show you the first 3 guides, and then typically your solid graphite tips are, oh, this is going to be hard to do. So here is the a solid tipped rod that is the lure killer, big trout lure killer, ultralight. So for those of you that are new into it, or you haven't had a solid tipped rod or whatever, but hopefully you can see just how much quicker, and actually the true distance. Let me do that. Whoa. So the first 3 guides, because I went back to the first 3, are actually, let me try to show you here. So here's the first 3, which is actually the first. Yeah, not counting the tips. Technically, it's the 4. If you count the tip, it's like the 4th one back. So the 5th one on this rod, I'll try to show you. See how much more bend that has than, it's not like a ton, but just that more. And this is a stiffer, hang on, I'm gonna have to go grab one. I'm gonna have to grab one of the ones I was actually talking about. And since it's, oh, here's the tip that's already off. Okay, so here is a soft tipped rod that I own, the Mavalos Delicacy. So I'm going to show you the first 3, or the length is where the first 3 say on that one I just showed you. So just past the first 3, almost to the 4th, here's a Mavalos Delicacy. And this is soft, like, if you guys can see what that does. In the Cast King Zephyr isn't far from that, or the Rock and Roll. And I think when you get into this, is like nuts. So I don't know if we've really got a spool that's ready to take the whip that you can. I know, like 1 gram trout magnets, probably even a half a gram, will load and that thing will whip out that bait. The problem is, I don't know if we've got a spool capable to keep up with that. So, or not keep up, but like it's gonna whip it, okay? Then our braking systems, once you get something moving fast, and the lighter the bait, I'm telling you, they slow down pretty quick. So I just think that we may not be there to what a whole, level of what some of these crazy light rods will do yet, but there's a trick, that's all in casting. Like, you don't want to, if you try to whip this rod with a 1 gram trout magnet, you're probably going to have some backlashing, overruns, and all that. But, you can kind of maybe not put a full effort into it, and there's a way to, like, adjust your cast to the limitations of your spools, which, like, for me, so I think it makes it easier to just start with a little touch stiffer rod and then you won't have that issue. Because like I'll use the Zephyr for example, that spool is fairly heavy for today's standards. What does that spool even weigh? And then the Zephyr, hang on, I got so much stuff everywhere. I knew this was going to be a long video. You know how I knew? I started it. I was like, it's going to be a long video. Bass Bonsai videos, it's going to be long. So give me 1 second and I'll try to, let's bring this all to what I'm talking about here. There's still other things I want to talk about, but hang on. Okay, I'm going to get my point across on what my thoughts are anyway, and we're going to do it here pretty quick. Here quick, we're going to do it. Let me get my specialized Bass and Bonsai scale out. And yes, you can buy this on AliExpress also. So, I don't really have an exact number, like weight-wise, what to start or what to do, whatever. I can just show you a bad, mismatched setup for me anyway, the way I cast. Some guys may love this setup if they're like little flicking stuff, possibly, I don't know. Okay, so we've got a spool, BFS spool that weighs pretty heavy, 8.7. Does have the bearing, so without the bearing, we're just going to call it a gram, could be gram. So 7.2. Let's say if that weighed 1.5 grams, you still have a pretty heavy spool for today's standards that has a what I consider inferior braking system, right? It's got the old MagTrack style. But then you're trying to match it with the rod. Look at this rod. Look at the flex of the Casking Zephyr. Now I hear the Valiant Eagle, the one I've talked about that is on sale right now for like $62. Jimmy at Roar Fishing that I've talked about in a couple of different videos. Have I told you how to tie the line on? Have I done that yet? Anyway, we'll talk about that in a second. He says the Valiant Eagle is a touch stiffer than the Zephyr is what I thought, and when I watched his video. He felt it was a little stiffer. But when you get that soft on your tip with a heavier, what I call the older technology spools, I think you need to... Where are you going? Oh yeah, it's already late. So anyway, this is still a very good reel. I just think it's a mismatched combo. I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing them if they would have came out with a stiffer, Zephyr rod. But they definitely need to. Hang on a second. It's going to get loud. But that is why I didn't like the Zephyr combo. I tried to use it and it wasn't bad. I traded Charles for the whole combo, if you guys remember that whole deal. PW100 Purple Pro version and the Dragon for the Zephyr combo. And I can't say I'm disappointed with this reel, but it definitely, on putting it on these lighter rods, as I'm definitely finding out, is where my downfall with liking that reel. Love the rod. I like it with the Dark Wolf Ultra because it can sort of keep up with that, and it seems to be kind of matched. So here's what I'm thinking where people get confused. You're like, I got a reel. I don't know if it's good for BFS. Well, maybe if I get, in your thoughts, and I guess to me, and my thought process was, well, if I get a light enough rod, it'll help me cast light lures with my bigger, thicker, heavier spool. And I think that is the worst thing to do. I think you're better off in going with, get away as long a rod as you can get away with, but not necessarily the softest. I think that you would be better served with, say if you got an SV or an MGL spool and you're like, well, I would like to be able to throw lighter baits. I don't think getting a real whippy rod is the way to throw those lighter baits. I think if you don't know the whole, using braid or figuring out a way to lighten the spool as light as it can possibly get, maybe even better bearings, just to get it easier to get whatever you're using, dealing with the startup easier, where you don't have to cast as hard to get the startup going. And then the rod doesn't, you don't need or want something that is that whippy, and you don't want to cast as hard as you can, because the minute you start doing that and you create all this rotation, the bait's going to slow down real quick, and this heavier weight is definitely going to take more to slow it down, you know, once it gets started. Because then the trick is you adjust the brakes up so much, or the side adjustment, you've tried to compensate for that, you've created issues there also, because it's just not going to get any distance with lightweight baits. So I don't have any numbers for you guys, and there's no scientific evidence behind this of like, well, at what spool range. But like, if you guys have watched the real test, and he says you need a 9 gram, you know, and it's not, he don't have an exact science, that's going off his out, you know, his experiences with his out casting, is if you need at least a 9 gram spool or lighter to be a, you know, pretty good or decent BFS reel. And I'm not going to argue that, but what I'm going to argue, not that I'm arguing with anybody, what I'm going to state is, in my mind, the way I'm thinking, and this reel is a perfect example. With the technology that's out there, it's about time, and I know everybody's going to be like, oh, everybody wants to stick stuff into categories. For guys that are new to the BFS or fishing in general, and they hear about BFS, you know, and you add the term power, it like creates a whole nightmare, right? Everybody triggered. Fanboys, Shipmano fans, Daiwa, everybody's triggered, right? The Dark Wolf Ultra is a perfect example. I think they added the Ultra in there, like, you know, ultra light. This is an ultralight reel, more or less meant, and it fits perfectly with ultralight rods, like the tips I've showed you. Now, you'll find cheap ultralight rods, like I got one over there, the pink one you guys heard me talk about. It's not truly an ultralight rod. It's pretty close. It's not quite a light. But I think there has to be a weight, you know, at least in your head, of, okay, if I want to use ultralight baits, ultralight rod, what BFS weight spool do I need in order to get that going? I don't think it's with a Zephyr. I don't think it could be with the Lingle. I'm still up in there with the Lingle. The Lingle should, I think, cast a little better than it does, but technically I still don't have a spool that is as advertised light as what it should be. But I've always thrown it with a little heavier line and that kind of stuff. But I think the Lingle is probably your first, the Lingle, the PW100 Pro, the reel Jay just talked about, ALC, BF7, those are your starts, and then you got to go down, lighter weight from there. Because if you try to go heavier, I'm not saying you can't throw, you know, ultralight BFS fish with a spool that weighs heavier than, say, I guess 6 grams without the, you know, without the spool, or without the spool bearing. Because I think that's roughly is that what the Lingle weighs? The Purple Pro, the only reels that I say that you can't, because somebody's going to jump on here and know what you guys are thinking, because I was thinking it. Well, the you know, stock Shimano's are 7 grams, 7 whatever, right, without the bearing. If you have the systems like that, then yeah, I would say you can get by with a little heavier. But 9 grams, in my mind, is out. Like, I got a Corrado BFS coming. I do not think that reel is going to be capable enough to what I consider ultralight BFS fishing. I don't think it's going to handle it. Can it do it? Possibly. I think, as you guys know, say 7 grams and down, then maybe 7 grams and down needs to be the cutoff. And, you know, guys, you know, for guys to recommend to other guys that are new into it, what should I start with? Because here's the thing that I'm trying to figure out how to, makes it easier for me to recommend or tell people and call a reel, because like this guy right here, this is the last reel I'd recommend to somebody wanting to go creek and stream fishing with BFS gear. This may be one of the best all-around reels for $75 that you can get, but that spool will not let you really get down into the weights, the baits that you want to throw ultralight. This spool really isn't there. This spool is, this spool is. So yeah, the aftermarket spools like Charles has Black Maxes, right? A Black Max is not a BFS reel. When you can get a real light waffle spool, you can get cheap ones that are kind of put you in BFS range, but you're not ultralight BFS range. So you can't really say, well, because there's still guys out there that will, and they'll put basically ultralight BFS as, oh, that's BFS. Anything over 3-4 grams or whatever, that's not BFS. Like, well, okay, well, technically, what my version of BFS is and yours are two different things. And here's my take on BFS. I guess I should say that, and then why I think there should be a couple separate categories of BFS, just like there is in spinning reels. There's different sizes, right? We don't really have different size BFS spool ratings technically. There's numbers out there, but there's not, like if you were looking for a reel for throwing heavy, I guess heavy crankbaits, you'd want a bigger size spool capacity, but technically all of our BFS reels don't hold a lot of line. So you're not going to be looking for that, but there should be like a sort of a chart, something. At some point somebody needs to come up with something to separate it, because BFS starts when you're throwing baits that you would normally throw with spinning gear. That's just what BFS, the way I have taken it from the get-go, when I still look into where it started and how it started or whatever. They're basically throwing something that a conventional BFS reel wouldn't. The only way to throw it with ease and, fun factor and to, get the job done was with spinning gear. But then spinning gear has its side effects, drawbacks, and all that kind of stuff. So then you had guys like me, when I got into it, I hate spinning reels. I tried them over the years. Man, that freaking wind knots and the fact you got to flip the bail and flip the bail back in order to really truly be doing it right just sucked. I got to where I could, instead of thumbing the spool, I got to where I could actually, this may sound dirty, but I was fingering the spool. I'd let that line come off, and you could stop spinning reel right where you want it if you put your finger on the spool and then the line hits your finger. Like you just kind of, you could actually feather. You can actually, if you're good enough, and there's guys out there doing it, I'm sure that they love that over bait casting gear. You can get that thing to stop and feather that cast and stop it right where you want it and get it slowed down and all that. Because I was practicing doing that before I got away from spinning gear. Here's the problem. The minute you got it right there, you're like, oh, it's perfect. It landed right where I wanted it to. The process to flip the bail, you can't just grab the handle and start cranking. You just cannot do that with the spinning. Every one I had, something would happen, and if you guys know spinning reels, they'd be turned a certain way where that crank just would not freaking turn. Like, it's jammed, so you'd have to flip it. Or, so you found a reel that, man, that felt good. Like it wherever that spool or the bail stops, you turn the handle and it flips it back over. Then you end up with wind knots because that line was a little loose or whatever. It's just a nightmare. So with bait casting gear, you can do away with that part. Only thing you got to worry about with bait casters is the infamous bird's nest, right? Backlash. The spool blows up and you're like, what just happened? Well, simplest way, just use Braid, and it makes it way easier. I think, in my mind, it cuts the issues with backlashing bird nesting over half into, like way less than that. Then there's some issues with setting your brakes. But to do it and to get us set up in the categories, I think, if we all have that same mindset that we're just basically throwing baits, and we may go up, we may technically be throwing baits, and I've talked about this to where the power BFS comes in. You can throw a bait that, yes, a normal bait caster with 12-pound line and 100 yards or whatever line may get it out there, but with a good proper BFS setup, man, you may be able to bomb that thing out there further than you normally would. It's kind of like downsizing, kind of like we're downsizing the spools now. You kind of have to think of it in mindset of not just weight and size of what you're doing. Like, say if you guys have seen me, if you haven't, my videos where I kind of show my tackle, the gear, and I'm showing baits along with the rod and combos and what I plan on using them for. it's kind of like that mindset also going backwards as to, you know, if I'm taking a medium heavy rod and I'm out there throwing, you know, a big popper, then I'm also, say I'm out here with the 5'6" rod and I'm taking a little popper, but I got the same idea in mind. I chose the medium heavy, or maybe I'm throwing it with the medium because of how far and how accurately and just how good it feels casting that rod with that size bait, weight bait. Then you can downsize and you do the same thing with BFS gear to where I could take that same little popper and I might be able to get it out there at that medium, but man, it just feels better. Like a Pop X feels way better with BFS gear than I've ever when I threw it with regular gear. Now the Pop Max is just a regular, you know, bait that I throw with my regular bait casting gear. But then like the Pop X, you can get crazy distances with BFS gear. So anyway, that covers that. I hope as far as where we're trying to go, or me anyway, on the channel, and what I'll like recommend to somebody to, because we need to get that separated out. Because I'll get guys that are, you know, and I'm not going to sit and put them in there, but I'm saying somebody or as a whole, the BFS community needs to get to a point like, okay, you know, stock reels that could be categorized as ultralight BFS reels. Not saying you got to use it there. Just like we don't have to use the Geico pigeon in saltwater. Yes, it's designed for saltwater. You can fish it in freshwater. Trust me, you can do it. I don't have one, but I know it can be done. I've seen it done. Obi-Wan Kenobi's doing it, but I knew it could be done the minute they put something out. Doesn't mean you can't use it for something else. Quick freaking side note that just popped in my head of talking about that saltwater. One of the most overlooked bass fishing reels that I'm the only guy I've ever seen use it for bass fishing. It was designed for saltwater back in my Abu Garcia days. The Revo TRV. That reel is maybe one of the best all-around bait casting reels you guys can use, and you've probably never even heard of it. And what made me think of it when I talked saltwater, and I've spotted this handle earlier. I got a video out on it if you want to see what I'm talking about. I think I called it the world's biggest fidget spinner or something because it comes with this handle. Look at this handle compared to any other handle, which my handles aren't really much to judge by because they're only 80 millimeters. But the Revo TRV came with the sort of shallow spool, drag clicker for some type of saltwater fishing. But perfect example, just because something is in a category, search out when you find something, it's like, oh, that would fit my purpose. Because I knew it'd fit right in. I had the MG Extreme 2, I had the ALC BF7, the LTX BF8, and the Revo TRV. It's in several videos. I think maybe one of the biggest fish I caught on my Whopper Plopper. When me and Emily were fishing, it was raining and it was craziness carrying on. I think that was probably on a Revo TRV. So if we separate these out, doesn't mean you can't pull them out, or we're not even saying aren't going to fish them somewhere else. And you'll see me, what I call basically torturing these or power fishing these that are maybe with the light spool that aren't intended for that, but I may be out there, you know, throwing half-ounce baits on them just to put them through the punishment, you know, for the channel kind of thing. So I would say somewhere 6 or 7 gram and lighter for ultralight. Then you go kind of heavier for your BFS, but then somewhere along the lines you kind of get blurry. Some of the older, technically, you can kind of call them BFS, but they're really getting close to the size and weights of what our SV and our MGL spools are. And that's where, as I get out of here, I'm going to end on this note talking about, hang on. Let me see. Oh, okay. Wow, there's a lot of comments here. Hang on a second. Oh, Jay, hang on. Jay's asked me a question if I'm sure about let's just weigh it with the line on it. This spool is crazy light. Let me weigh it. If you guys can see, can you guys make out that? Here's the Shimano Aldebaran. Make sure I don't drop it. What I'm pulling off is the actual, my leader. Hang on a second. So I got the leader pulled off. There's a knot. Here's the line I fish it with. It still has a little bitty bearing. That's the stock Shimano bearing I put on it. So 0 grams. Can you guys read that? So 6 grams with the line. Not sure how much line that is. But I did weigh this. It's in a video. What did I say? It weighed 4.2? I don't know. I'll have to look back on that video, but with the line, what does this thing weigh? And for now, this is I guess as much weight, I'll put it that way. This is as much weight as I plan on fishing this reel with, but I probably, well, not probably, you'll definitely see it. It'll be this same camo braid. If you guys can see the depth roughly. Because this is definitely a shallower spool than this one. This one, believe it or not, has quite a bit of line on it. Let's see what it weighs. I can't remember what it weighed. I want to say it weighed 7.2. So yeah, 8.7 with the bearing, with the line and all that. So you could probably take a gram off that 7.7 maybe. Because that spacer and the bearing are still on there, so that's got to weigh, I would guess. Does that weigh a gram? So you have to take that into account. You know, if you guys watch the reel test on, like when he does the trout magnet, he's only putting so much line on. And so when you come out here, like you watch me, like I've started doing here lately, I'm fishing how I'll fish it. I don't spool everything up like I've talked about. Just because a spool is made 32, 34, 36, whatever, does not mean you have to fish them at that. Yes, your gear ratios will change a little. You will, you know, it'll slow. Anytime you go down, I don't know by how much, but if you go down, say a millimeter, it will technically slow your retrieve down. But especially once you get to a deeper spool, like say this guy right here. But the reel's 8.5 or 8.6 to 1 or whatever, so I'm definitely not getting as fast a retrieve, but I just love the way it fishes, casts, and the reel. Everything seems fine. There's nothing saying that you have to reel in something at that exact speed. Like we've talked about the handle length. You know, changing shorter, longer, typically not 100% as far as if it even makes a big deal. But the shorter handle you have, typically you just, even if you're not trying, you're going to be reeling in a little bit faster than as you add a longer handle. It's gonna slow you down a hair, may not even be a noticeable difference. And in my mind, it makes it, for me, it's harder to work baits the minute I go longer. Like I'd show Charles this. When you get this crazy thing I've made here, but like when you watch me reeling with this as opposed to this, it looks like I'm reeling faster, but the motion, the stuff I'm doing, it actually feels easier to do what I'm doing with this guy. So I don't know how much goes into all that kind of stuff, but I know that hardly ever do I go, I never go, it's like you guys have watched Tropic Thunder, right? You never go full, yeah. I never go too high, and that's where I don't like to go any higher, and this is a crazy shallow spool. The difference in these two as far as depth, I'd swear this one is almost twice as deep as this guy. But it is smaller around, so as far as how much line each one actually holds, I'd say right now I've got, I don't know. I don't know which one has more line on it right at the moment. They're both 10 pound. All right, guys, I got to get out here. This video's too long. I had a lot of other stuff I want to talk about, but we can talk about it another time, another day. I don't have any idea how to pronounce your name. Hannah Popet? I'm sure I murdered it. He said he wouldn't be surprised if the new Aldebaran comes through. Yeah, it may be an awesome reel, but man, at the moment, just looking at it, it does not look good to me. And then Accuro TV says it does have the drag clicker, but you would be happier with the Geico Pigeon, given your affinity for braid and the casting of lures in different bait size ranges. Yeah, that's a possibility. He uses English subtitles. Yeah, and you guys might want to watch that too. At Curio TV, I guess, does he have a channel too? But he said you can watch the Japanese YouTube channel Maniacs just to release a comparison of the Silver Creek Air versus the Geico Pigeon Air. He uses English subtitles. So, I don't know. I'll probably go check that out. If that reel's got a drag clicker, I guess I need to check out and make 100% for sure. I may just go ahead and order one of those because it looks so much better than the Alpha's Air TW. The Geico Pigeon looks better, but the spool looks horrid to me. Just glancing at that solid black spool, if I had a downside to the lingle other than this clicker thing, which was giving me problems today, at least it does click, the adjuster. I don't like the black spool. Somebody comment if you know the source, the lingle variant that actually has a gold spool. There's one out there, and I can't remember if it's used the same braking or not. I'd like to just get a gold spool. Anyway, guys, I'm out of here. There you go. Go watch that out. Just called Maniacs, I guess. YouTube channel Maniacs. Release a comparison Silver Creek. That's probably worth watching. I don't have any Silver Creek comparison because I don't have one. But tomorrow you will see that video when I first got my Alpha's Air 2W on the 522 SUL. You'll see me fishing, and I also talked about, and you'll see me catching fish with the Sonora Little Popper, Dr. Frankenstein. I think that's it. I caught a couple, but the doctor was in. And I just kind of hashed up. It's an old video. And you guys comment if you like the idea of that. It's like 5 minutes or just over 5 minutes. If you like the idea of because some of you guys don't like watching, I don't blame you. Like this video right now, hardly nobody's going to watch this video once the initial guys that wanted to just watch. Like nobody jumps on YouTube and watches an hour and something video normally. So I'm going to try to piece together just to show you guys like some of the stuff I've used even over the years, like old videos. Maybe even one with that TRV if I show it. But typically in the past, which I try to do more now, is I show what I'm using. Before, you just see me out there fishing and, tearing them up. And then I never really even talked about what I was doing, how I was doing it, what I was doing it with. And so, but what I try to do in the future is maybe started out with this combo. You saw me, I went out and I did a little short video showing it throwing that little John Koo popper just to, for guys that like little short videos. Oh, that's a cool rod or reel. And, where'd you get that kind of thing? And sometimes when it's a new deal, I'll share the link. So if you guys are looking for links to any of my stuff, you need to find the first video that the thing usually showed up in, because then it's probably there. But as I get out of here, for sure, I'm going to keep it under 20 minutes, so this is real quick. If you want to find any of this stuff, it's not rocket science. eBay, AliExpress, Tackle Warehouse, Japan Lure Shop, Digitaka, Platt. Search out for whether it be Japanese, websites that are selling stuff. AliExpress covers almost all your Chinese wants or needs. eBay is a good place, or just forums, Bass Boat Central, Tackle Tour, place on YouTube or Facebook also. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Track it down, find it, and buy it.